I'm going to be talking about my theory for the creature from the Doctor Who episode Midnight. Now, there are a couple things you need to know before I start my explanation, so here's a quick physics lesson. You need to know a bit about four particles: photons, protons, electrons, and neutrinos. The photon is the particle that makes up light. It has no mass, so it can travel at the speed of light, and while it interacts with our physical world, it cannot outright harm humans. The proton is the particle you learned about in your high school chem class. It's made up of 3 quarks, and therefore can decay, though it is not proven. It is part of what makes up matter as we perceive it. The electron is another particle you learned about in chemistry. It is the force carrier for the electromagnetic force, which exists not only to power our everyday lives, but to power our bodily functions through synapses in our brains. The neutrino is a particle you've probably not heard of before, but it's relatively new in research. For the purpose of this video, all you need to know is that they have mass, but they pass through us and everything else harmlessly. You have millions of neutrinos going through you right now. Okay, so now that we're done with all the physics stuff, let's get on to the Doctor Who stuff. Assuming that extonic light operates on the same principles as regular light, it is made up of photons and is only radioactive due to unfiltered radioactivity from the sun. On the Diamond Planet, we have a creature that can withstand massive amounts of radiation from the sun, is remarkably fast, and is only seen when it wants to be seen. It could be as simple as that the creature is made of lead or some other radioactivity-resistant material, but I believe it's far more than that. From evidence shown in the episode, I believe that the creature has a 4-stage life cycle based on the 4 particles that I mentioned earlier. The first stage is the photon stage. When it is outside and only the driver can see it, it is made up of photons, therefore is able to travel as fast as it wants, is only seen when it wants to be seen, but can still be detected and interact with objects, creating the rock slide mentioned earlier by the computer. Because photons have very limited interaction with matter, when the creature enters the second stage of its life, the proton stage, it is now made up of protons held together by the strong force. It bangs on the ship by sensing the movements of the people inside, and mimics the movements of the protons which make them up. Once its target is decided, it enters the third and shortest stage of its life, the Neutrino Phase. As I said in my introduction, neutrinos pass through objects without consequence, allowing it to pass through the walls of the ship with no damage. Once inside the ship, it takes on its final and most complex form, the Electron Stage. As I mentioned before, electrons fire from the brain's synapses and send electrical signals along the nervous system. The creature took over the form that had the most signals flying around. Because Sky Silvestri was so terrified and had the most signals firing around in her brain, the creature took her form. As it inhabits her brain, it has to study what makes her tick, hence the time of silence. During this time, all of Sky's organs shut down as the creature does not know how to work them. This is the point where Sky Silvestri passes away. It used the other people as guides to the average human typical nerve firing, and mimicked them by sending identical signals moments after. As the creature gains understanding, it begins to read what their brain says before they're going to say it. The more it repeats, the more fluent it becomes at reading the electromagnetic language of our heads. It begins to know that a nerve firing higher up in the chain of command produces a sound, meaning an action and gaining a reaction. It takes time for signals to be sent around the body, but the creature is reading from the source, allowing it to speak at the same time the signals arrive to the victim's mouth. Once it takes accurate readings, it notices that the doctor is far more advanced than the others, possibly because he's a telepath, meaning he could have electromagnetic field in his brain, or other electromagnetic things, but that's opening a whole other can of worms. It isolates and begins to take outside readings on him alone. Once decided that the electromagnetivity of the Time Lord's brain is better than Sky's, it inhabits him. But the Doctor lives because Time Lords have mental barriers that protect essential organs, or some other quirk of Time Lord biology we don't know about. It uses the Doctor's brain to structure itself around him, which is why it uses Sky to say things like molto bene and allons-y. It accesses the Doctor's memories by triggering specific neurons to fire and recreating previously used patterns. Again, why he repeats some of the words we already heard the Doctor say in the episode. Once it assimilates into the Doctor, everything else is out of its hands. And of course we know the events of the episode. It gets thrown back out on the Diamond Planet once the humans decide to kill it. Now, the creature could die because it's inhabited Sky's physical form. But there's another option. When electrons and positrons collide, they scatter off and create a photon, like in the Feynman diagram. I believe that the creature's stages of life are a circle rather than a straight line, because all it has to do is leave its physical form and have all or most of its electrons find a positron to annihilate and create a photon, effectively restarting the cycle. Not only is this creature basically immortal, but with these parameters it is not strictly stuck to the Diamond Planet. It can habit anywhere where there is light, including Earth. Just some food for thought. And that's my bored physics major interpretation of exactly what the creature on Midnight was. Thanks for watching. I'd be glad to answer any questions in the comments below. Just leave them down there and I'll get to them as soon as I can.